Welcome to Insight Marketing Success, the podcast where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience, from vision to execution.
Hi, Paul. Welcome to IMS, Insight Marketing Success. Today we have Paul Poteet with us, owner of Search Investment Group. Paul, tell us, I had the opportunity to meet with you before, but tell us who you are.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on the podcast. I own Surge Investment Group. It's a multifamily development firm. We're based out of Utah, but we do business in multiple states, including Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, really southern focused. We buy land, we build apartment communities, and we sell 2 to 3 years after construction is completed. So that's a short version, but happy to go into any detail that you'd like to dive in there.
Well, tell us about your journey from, education that you had and then the jobs that led you to what you're doing today.
I didn't always know that real estate, especially development, was an option. I don't think that's something that, especially if you don't grow in and around a lot of wealth and real estate investors, you just don't know a lot about it. There's not classes in school, at least for a bachelor's degree, that you can take. So I discovered this field late in my college career, just happened to meet the right person, became a good mentor for me. I studied entrepreneurial management, so I knew I wanted to start a business of my own of some sort. I just didn't know what that was. And finding real estate felt like a calling for me once I did. I learned about the value you can create with development, and it felt right for me. So I started my journey there. I worked with a mentor for several years right out of college. I was a part owner in that partnership as well. And eventually I sold my ownership in that company to start Surge Investment Group. That was about 5 years ago.
Okay. I personally believe that, is serendipity where you're going to call in your life journey. So tell us more about that mentor. How did that come about and how influential has it been in your life?
Yeah, I call this a lot of hard-earned luck. And what I mean is I happen to know the right people, but it's because I was just curious and I was willing to talk to people and ask for things. I was president of the Entrepreneurship Society at BYU, Idaho, which is where I was going to college. And I was constantly talking to entrepreneurs that we would meet through that organization. And this one actually happened to be my best friend's father-in-law, who owned a successful business in the Salt Lake area. And I was down there one day and just asked him to meet and talk about maybe just some ideas as I was getting ready to graduate college. And he just so happened to have met this gentleman that became my mentor a couple weeks before, and he made the connection. And I started going to educational courses that this guy was teaching. Small groups, maybe 10 to 15 people at a time, but I was sold. So I just started asking questions. I got his number. I went to more of his little educational events, and we grew from there. So he was someone who had been doing real estate at a high level pre-crash back in 2009, and he got out of the business for a long time, went through a lot of difficult things, as most people in real estate during that time did. I just happened to meet him at the right timing where he was getting back into real estate, had a lot of experience, but needed someone who was a little young, ambitious to push him, had a nice untarnished credit score, all those things. And so it just ended up being the right match for us.
Wonderful. Excellent. And he'll probably be remembered forever in your life.
Absolutely. He did so much for teaching me how to run this business. And just the way that he thinks about real estate is different than anyone I've ever met. And so being able to get trained in a way where I'm not just accepting the industry norms, but I'm looking at things differently from different angles, able to get creative, it's really helped build my company.
Wonderful. Okay. So when you first started, you sold your interest in that company and you started investment group. You obviously had to brand yourself and get started. So you had a challenge of marketing yourself. Tell us about that initial journey. How did you get yourself established with a brand new brand?
Yeah. I think that's a journey that we're still going through, but we have several years under our belt as well. And I was fortunate during my partnership with my mentor to have built many relationships in the industry and to have built a reputation for my personal brand, even though it wasn't my company brand. And so when I started on my own with Surge Investment Group, I was able to leverage a lot of those prior contacts. I was able to receive investors that trusted me from my time and experience there. And then from there, we just grew word of mouth. Most of our marketing was word of mouth to begin with. And we've gone to a lot of events really pushing the brand and just meeting people individually. Haven't done a lot of paid advertising, but I feel like we've been able to do really well at capturing the one-on-one relationships that we've built and expanding from there.
Okay. So it's grassroots, meeting people and so forth.
That's right.
Okay, very good. All right. Have you done any in which you did something, let's say an event or paid a company or whatever it is, and you expect this much and you receive this much, but you learn something?
Constantly. Well, we've done a limited amount, but we've done some paid advertising that hasn't yielded huge results for us. But we're limited in what we can share there too, given the fundraising nature of our company has regulations behind it around marketing. But I've spent a lot of money on going to mastermind groups and joining exclusive events and just trying to pay for booths to go to different events and pitch people, etc. And most of those have yielded very little results. Some of them, and the thing with my business, it takes just one good connection to make it all worth it. But sometimes you go to 4 or 5 events and you make zero connections, and that can be very discouraging. So that's a common thing for us.
Okay. So you are constantly trying things and experiencing zero at times. But what have
Absolutely.
you learned? What's the learning from that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think part of it is messaging. So we're able to tweak our messaging when we experience those failures and go at it again. I think another part is really focusing on spending your money right. So making sure that it's just not your idea of what a good room is, but it's actually the type of person that's ready and interested in your product. For example, as a capital raiser, you might say a great idea would be to go to a conference for doctors and have a booth there because doctors have a lot of money. Well, the reality is when doctors are going to a conference, they're very have very little interest in learning about investment opportunities. They want to know what's going to increase their career, what's going to increase their patient and office capabilities, etc. And so we have very little success going to those events. And so the learning there is not just, who's my idea of who I want to be in and can I put the rooms in myself in those rooms? It's more of who is active and ready to invest and how do I find those people?
There you go. Yeah, that's the stage of what they are, the stage. So
That's
yeah,
right.
good. What is the biggest trend you see in marketing in your field today?
I put biggest trend or strength?
Trend, trend.
Trend in marketing. I see a lot of social media, and I guess I forgot to mention this before, but one thing we're actively doing right now for marketing is webinars. And so you see a lot of people that do webinars, a lot of podcasts such as this, a lot of social media posting. You get guys like Grant Cardone or Pace Morby. These guys grow in fame because of their social media presence, and I see success in that as far as a capital raising strategy. It's always been something I've personally pushed back a little bit on because I don't really want to put myself out there a lot on social media. I'm fine doing podcasts and webinars. It's a little bit more my speed, but that's the trend I see. More and more social media presence, short reels, capturing people's attention for 30 seconds and then moving on.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's talk about the ideal client. Let's assume, I give you a genie and the genie says, okay, I'm going to get you 3 investors and they are going to be the ideal investors for you, but you have to describe them to me. You already said they have to have money. You already said ready to invest, but tell me more, like the amount, the age range, as much as you can to define your ideal investor.
Yeah. My ideal investor is going to be usually between the ages of 40 and 60. They're going to be worth between 10 and 30 million and are looking to place between 250,000 and 2 million at a time into specific investments. And usually these are going to be self-made individuals. They like to have a little bit of control over their investment, but they don't want to be running the deals. These individuals are going to be more entrepreneurial in nature, and it's a relationship-based relationship that we build with our investors as opposed to you place it and then we go silent for forever. So these are guys who want to actually have a personal relationship with the person that they're investing with.
Okay, great. All right. What would be the advantages of working with search investment and any other investment group? And obviously there are more, but how will you differentiate search investment from other investment companies?
Yeah, there's a couple ways I can answer that. The first is our specific approach compared to other people's approach. Most companies are out there, especially large established companies, are out there investing in larger primary markets. There's some good things that come with that, but it tends to be more conservative capital. And there's a lot of growth happening right now in smaller secondary markets. So there's going to be cities between 150 and a million in population, 150,000. We are one of the few firms in the country that has a national presence, but we also focus on those smaller secondary type markets where you have higher and more consistent rent growth over the past couple of years. The price difference between large markets and smaller markets has been compressing over the past few years. And so we feel like there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of unmet demand in these smaller markets, whereas the larger ones are overbuilt right now and margins are smaller. It's been harder to get deals done and make sense. So we've got a little bit of approach in a niche there where there's an opportunity others aren't taking advantage of at the same level. And then aside from that, most of the time when you invest in real estate, if you're not running the deal yourself, it's going to be investing with a personal friend. Oftentimes those guys are less experienced, but you know them and trust them, and so you place your money. So we bring the experience, but also the small company feel of someone you can know and trust. So you're not investing with a large fund with a huge team. It's becomes impersonal at that point. You can call me and text me anytime, and I'm going to respond within a couple hours. So that's one thing that we bring to the table.
Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about the character. Obviously, trust is going to be big for you to communicate and so forth, but let's talk about your friends and so forth. So let's imagine that you go to a restaurant and you are in one of those booths where you cannot see people behind you or in front of you, but you recognize the voice, and behind you are your three best friends. And suddenly you hear your name, and they start talking about you. What are the three things that you hope they say about you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think this is more of a selfish thing, but I would hope they say that I have a good sense of humor because I'm pretty proud of my sense of humor with my friends. But from a character standpoint, integrity has always been the number one focus when I've tried to build my character and make decisions in my life. From a very young age, that was important to me. I have a pretty good sense of what's right and wrong, and I tend to be very communicative on how I feel on those stances. And so integrity would be one of those. Loyalty is huge. I'm one of the more loyal friends to those that are close to me. I'm usually there to support them in any event that they host or thing that they're trying to accomplish. So those are a few things that I would think would be said.
Wonderful. How about family man? Anything related to your family, like great husband, great father?
Well, one day I'm still a single guy and no
Oh,
kids, and so
so you're a
when the
bachelor.
time
Okay,
comes, I hope that's said about me. But right now, they probably just say, "Oh, he needs a wife,
you need
needs a
somebody
family."
to tame him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, a loyal friend and man of integrity one day will hopefully translate to a loyal husband and father and all those things.
All right, Paul. I didn't realize that you were a single guy. But let's assume, even for single guys, life doesn't go according to plan, right? Sometimes your professional life can go and have a dip, or your personal life where you want a partner, you don't have a partner, or whatever it is, family, relationship with siblings or parents or cousins, whatever that is. How do you stay grounded? How do you get yourself back into a good place mentally? What do you use?
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. Life never goes to plan. That's just how it is. But I'm a man of faith. And I've wanted, for example, taking the single guy point, I've wanted to be married and have kids. It's always been a goal of mine. I haven't been putting it off. Just haven't found the right circumstances in life that have allowed me to pursue that yet. I haven't found the right person. And so sometimes it can be easy to say, oh, why isn't this happening for me? Right. And same thing with business. There's always going to be hard times in business and whatever efforts and initiatives that you're trying to launch in business, there's always going to be setbacks. But the reality is those that succeed are not the ones that have the best ideas. They're not the ones that have everything go well for them. It's the ones that can persevere and endure for as long as it takes for, things to eventually go your way. And life has ups and downs. And if you're in a down, eventually it's going to go to an up. right? And so I believe in God and have faith that whatever I'm going through is where I'm supposed to be in that time. I think if we worry too much about what isn't going right, we miss all the things that are going right in life, all the beauty that's around us. At the end of the day, I could lose my business tomorrow and I'd be just fine. Like it would create a lot of hardships and trials, but there's still a lot to be grateful for. I live in a wonderful place, a beautiful country. I have wonderful friends. So I don't let those things impact me too much to keep me down.
Great answer. Out of 35 interviews. So awesome. Next question. Let's imagine that given the experience you have today, you can go back in time to exactly when you just graduated and give a message to yourself. What would you tell yourself?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, and there's a lot of details that I could have or information I could use, 10 years ago. But the biggest thing for me is slow growth. I was in a position several years back when I sold my ownership in my previous partnership. I had multi seven figures in cash in my bank account from that sale. And from a guy I was at the time in my late 20s, it's a lot of money. And there's a lot of options and paths that I could have taken with that money. I chose to build this business and to invest it all in the business, which I think is the right choice. But in hindsight, in 2022, real estate started to slow down a lot. And because I had invested in so much, I found myself to be over levered and to not be able to execute on everything that I had invested in early on. Whereas if I had just done fewer deals and been a little bit more slower and intentional about that growth, I would have been in a lot better position, and I wouldn't have had to go through a lot of challenges that I had to overcome over the last 2 years. And so the ambition is great when you're young, especially when you have a lot of money and you feel like you know what you can do with it. But slower, more controlled growth would be the message I would be sending myself.
Right. Wonderful. Paul, is there anything else you want to tell our audience about yourself?
Yeah, I would say that one of the core values of my company is generosity. We love giving, and whether that's good returns and generous returns compared to market standards, that's one way, but a bigger part of that is just passing on knowledge and expertise. If those that are listening have real estate deals, or even just based on this conversation, they feel like I could add value in another way in their life. I'm a generous guy. If you call me and I don't know you and you just, hey, I want to talk and get to know you, I'm there for that. That's the one thing I'd say. Reach out, be our friend, add me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Paul, thank you very much for being part of IMS. Look forward to getting to know you better and collaborate with you in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Insight Marketing Success, where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience from vision to execution.